Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you the process for this axolotl inspired doll. We're starting with a Lagoona and I braided all of her colored pieces out of the way just so that I could reuse those in the future for reroots. I also braided her blonde hair and then took sharp scissors to cut it as close as possible to the scalp, put that in a cup with boiling water, and then once it got all soft and squishy, I used careful pulling and twisting motions to separate the head from the neck peg. Next, I went in with a screwdriver to pull the plugs into the inside of the head. I find that the part can be a bit difficult, especially with G3, because the hair is melted together and it becomes a really hard chunk, but just keep at it and you can do it. Then I pulled the hair out with a pair of tweezers, and now I'm using a nail polish remover with acetone on a piece of kitchen paper to rub off the paint on the scalp. I kept the face paint because I wanted to see what Lagoona would look like with this reroot. And here you can see the colors of hair I have. These are all reused. They're from Caddy, Draculaura, G1 Mercedes, and also the purple hair from Lagoona. Next I'm taking some white paint, some red paint, and some violet paint to mix a color that comes quite close to the hair. This color is a bit light, you'll see later, but I painted on 2 layers just to make sure that it would stay. And you do this so that any bald spots in the reroot don't look as obvious. And here you can see I'm mixing a bit of a darker color and I'm putting that near the bottom of her head, or like the back of her head, because I'm going to be rerooting her with different colors of hair, different darknesses of pink. And here I'm showing you how that I prepare for my reroot. I get the little plug of hair, or like I grab a decently sized strand of hair and get it wet and then just separate little bits of hair at a time. I find that I can get a bit impatient if I constantly need to switch tasks from separating the hair to putting it on the tool to plugging it into the head. So I like to do this work ahead of time, where I just separate all of these plugs and I lay them out kind of on top of each other so that they don't take up too much space on the table. And here you can see I already got started. These bits I did mostly with the knot method just to keep the length. But now I'm going in with the usual method where you fold the hair in half, and you can see the way I loop it over the tool. I loop it over my finger, loop it over the tool, make sure the ends are lined up, and then plug it into the head. And you can see that these plugs, this one's kind of thick, so I just split it in half and try to match up the ends, and again just plug it in there. And I'm pretty sure that this is Caddy's original hair. And her ponytail is really long, so her hair was long enough to keep for a reroot and still end up with, I think her hair, let's see, her hair comes about down to her hips still. Maybe a bit less long than that, but I think that's still really, really decent long doll hair. So just a little tip, if you like doing reroots, keep the hair that you cut off of your doll because you can reuse it. And I find rerooting quite tedious, but I also find it quite therapeutic. I think it's maybe my favorite part just because I like getting to touch the soft hair. I like getting to play with it and styling it, and so I find it really, really worth it. I usually watch YouTube videos or watch TV shows and just keep at it, wrapping it around my finger, plugging it in, and I find that the way that I hold the head makes it really easy. I don't have to put the head down, and the hair also doesn't get very tangled at all. But I also understand if maybe not everyone is possible to hold it like this. I think I have quite big hands, and also I think it takes quite a bit of dexterity to do it like this. But yeah, just keep at it, and then eventually, here I think I have the whole lower hairline done, and now I'm going to be moving on. I'm going to put another couple long bits of hair right above the little lilac pieces above her ears, and these ones I want to be really long because I want to give her long little braids there, and so this is how you do the knot method. There's apparently several ways of doing the knot method, but this one you get to keep the most length on the hair. So I am just putting it through the end of a needle, pushing that through the hole in the head, pulling it through the neck hole, and I like to tie 2 knots. I find especially with nylon, which is quite slippery, 2 knots is a must, but with saran 1 knot can usually be enough. And another problem I found with this version of doing the knot method is sometimes the hair gets a bit unraveled, not unraveled, but it gets misaligned, so then it can help to cut a little piece off. But what I noticed with this version of doing the knot method is sometimes my needle gets stuck on the knots of other pieces of hair if the plugs are too close together. So be careful about that. But usually you can just pull it back through by the tail and it isn't a problem. Here you can see kind of the gradient I'm going for. I'm using more hair that came from Caddy, I think, to fill up the back and get that length. And then on top of that, you can see I gave her bangs already. Her bangs are reused Mercedes hair. That hair was quite short. And now I'm using Draculaura's pink hair, some of it in the knot method and some of it folded in half to do the top part that isn't her bangs. And one of the reasons that I did this gradient is just because I thought it would look cute, but another reason is that I did not have enough pink hair of any of these reused colors to do a full reroot. And the reason I did the lilac bits, first I had that hair from Lagoona still, but then I also just thought that that would be a nice color to add to her color scheme. And you can also see that I added this line on her scalp, and that was for me to differentiate when that I was going to go from folding the hair in half to using the full length of the hair. And I wanted to do that just because I wanted her to kind of have some layers in her hair, but I also needed the hair closer to the nape of her neck to be longer to work with her hairstyle. And maybe I can talk about her hairstyle some. The plan was to put 2 buns on the top of her head and then 2 braids on either side of her head. So 4 braids total, and then I also wanted to add braids in front of her ears just because I think that's cute. And the reason she has that many little things on her head, you can see it's braided out of place, but this is just so that it doesn't get into the way of the reroot again. The reason I wanted to put this many braids on her head was so that I could kind of mimic the way that axolotls have the frills on their head. I wanted her to have all of these, different little kind of appendages. And you'll see later I also try and mimic the frills with her ears, but I thought it's not gonna be overkill. She's gonna look like an axolotl either way. Now I'm separating some more hair, and this is the hair from Draculaura. It's a bit shorter than the hair that I had left over from Caddy, but I'm just separating it again. I got it wet, and you get it wet so that the hair kind of sticks together nicely, and then I just separated it, laid it out on the table just so that I could kind of set up a little assembly line and just keep at it with what I was doing. And with the next bit of the reroot, I actually did it a bit differently than the knot method. I just made the needle on my reroot tool really long and then plugged it into the head. I think that one went wrong. I plug it into the head so that the end just ends up fully inside of the head. And I think the reason it's not recommended to do this is because there's no kind of tension or anything holding the hair inside of the head. And I trim off little extra bits. I don't like it when the little short ends end up sticking out of the scalp. I think it looks a bit messy, so I'm really careful to make sure that the one end, the long end, is as long as it can be, and the short end is shorter than the needle, so that in the end it gets plugged deep into the head. And it went okay. I had to be careful while rerooting, as I said, but I think with the glue in, it's still securely enough in the head that I could do her hairstyle without any hair coming out. And yeah, I'm just filling up her head with all of the hair plugs again. I don't know if I will try this method again, but I think it's a more efficient method of getting the full length of the hair than the knot method. And as I said earlier, rerooting is my favorite part, but I don't want to reroot using the knot method. I find it really, really, really tedious, and rerooting is already so tedious. So I might do this again, but ideally I will just have hair long enough that I can fold it in half. And now she's done, and now I'm using this cemented glue to seal it all in there. I think it's really similar to Uhu glue. It's just an all-purpose glue. And I'm squeezing a quite generous amount into the head, and then I find using the plastic back of a paintbrush works quite well to scrape it around. The glue doesn't seep into the plastic and such, and it's good to kind of squeeze the sides of the head into the paintbrush and into each other to just make sure that the glue is all spread around. And I'm going in to add some more. I get really worried about my dolls not being sturdy, so I make sure to extra secure whatever is possible. I think as a kid I accidentally destroyed a lot of things, and I think that made me a bit scared, but also you'll see later with the body mods that I'm really scared of things falling apart. My first custom doll was a Mercedes that I made really short, and her leg broke off at one point, and that just made me so sad. And so I'm trying to make sure that all my dolls are sturdy. And now we get to go in, this is my favorite part, removing the face. Though I think Lagoona looks really pretty with pink hair, and I kind of feel like I want to make a pink-haired Lagoona. I have a pink-haired Lagoona. You'll see in the collection video. I want to get that out around New Year's, or maybe around Christmas. We'll see when I get around to it. To remove her face, I'm using Q-tips and the same acetone nail polish remover. It's not fully 100% concentrated acetone, but it works with just regular nail polish remover. And I'm just going in, trying to remove the paint. At some point you can see that the Q-tip gets kind of saturated with paint and it starts smearing, and then I just go in with a new one with fresh nail polish remover. And you want to make sure to cover your bottle of acetone, because acetone will evaporate and your bottle will lose its efficacy. Yeah, it's so fun to me getting to see the face sculpt be revealed. Lagoona has such a pretty face sculpt, she's so cute. And I'm also going in with a little piece of kitchen paper, also soaked in acetone, to wipe her face. You can see that her lips are still a bit stained by the factory lipstick, but it isn't an issue for me because I get to paint over her whole face anyways. And now we're going in to modify her ears. I thought Lagoona's ears already looked kind of axolotl-like, and so I just went in to kind of try and accentuate that. So I'm going in and sharpening, or I don't know if sharpening is the word, but I'm removing the little ridge that's below the bottom fin on her ear. And I'm also going in to cut the space between her little ear fins. And that's just to try and make it look like the frills that axolotls have on the sides of their head. And I find that most of the dolls that I get now are produced in Indonesia, and the Indonesia dolls have way softer heads than the ones produced in China, which for rerooting is nice, but for modifying makes it a bit harder, especially to slice and sand them. But it still works. And so I'm just slowly going in with my scalpel. The scalpel isn't super sharp, but I'm just going in slowly, scraping away the bits. I'm trying not to go at too straight of an angle for fear of fully cutting off her ear. And I'm going in with a wet sandpaper, or I'm not sure if I'm wet sanding. I think I'm dry sanding here. But I'm just carefully trying to really not put on too much pressure so I can actually smooth out the ridges rather than just press it into the soft head. As I said, the Indonesia heads are a bit softer, and this is a core refresh Lagoona, so I'm pretty sure she's from Indonesia and soft. And once that I'm kind of happy with where that lower ridge is at, I'm going in and separating the several little fins that she has, which are so cute, and I was actually so happy to emphasize them. But this was really quite tricky. I tied her hair out of the way. Oh, this is a messy clip. I tied her hair out of the way to try and not accidentally cut off her hair, and then just folded up some sandpaper and tried to smooth out those grooves. This was really the most annoying and frustrating part, especially that lower one. That lower one, the one closest to her neck, is so thin, and it would just wiggle out of the way rather than be sanded. And you can see I'm like trying to push it into the sandpaper. So if you try this, I recommend cutting off what you want gone and not trusting too much in sanding, because this was really tricky. But I think in the end it worked out quite well. I cut off more at the back just so that you don't see, I don't know how to explain this, so you don't see the shape of the ear that she used to have anymore. And from the back it looks a bit ugly, but who looks at the back of dolls' heads? It's really not something I'm worried about. And yeah, I just went in, sanded it all, tried to make it look as good as possible from the front, and then went into the other ear. I worked one ear at a time just to like make sure that I knew what I was doing, and so I could kind of improve my technique as I moved on, just so that she wouldn't have two jacked up ears before I figured out the technique. Here you can see I'm cutting away like the excess at the back. And then once we're done working on our ears, we will move on to her body. We're actually working with Draculaura's body because of her skin tone, but I wanted her to have a slightly different body shape. So I sanded down her hips, and I also sanded this groove into her lower legs just so that it'd be easier to saw through them. Here you can see, I did this with a Dremel and I did it outside, so I wasn't able to film it, but I wanted her to have a bit of a longer looking torso and also a narrower torso, and it's just my least favorite step is to saw through the legs, so I made sure to make it easier on myself. And I will be making a doll with the leftover pieces, so with the Draculaura's head and Lagoona's body, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, and then I went to saw off her legs. I considered making her or leaving her as short as Draculaura is, but I really like having body diversity in my dolls and having all my dolls be different shapes, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to get a differently shaped doll. And I showed that the inside of the legs turned out really uneven, and I find that sanding down the doll bodies with the Dremel, it leaves a lot of really thin slivers that I just sliced off with my scalpel again. And now I'm cutting little notches into the legs, because again, I don't like working with wire, so we're going to attach her with thread. You can see the notches match up, and that will be where the thread runs. And then for the leg that was really uneven, I had a bit of a hard time, but you'll see how I solved that. And then I'm using a little handheld drill to drill a hole from one of the notches to the other one. You can see this is the uneven leg. I'm carving around the hole to get the excess off. Again, carving around the hole and drilling matching holes on the top of the shins, yes. And you can see that it's just opening the hole a little bit and connecting it to that divot. What did I call it before? The sliver? Just connecting it so that there's kind of a little path for the thread to go through. once that's finished on the one leg, I repeat it on the other leg. I love that I show this in such detail, but if you want to do body mods and you're trying to find a way that works for you, and maybe like me don't like working with wire but still want your dolls to be sturdy, then pay attention. I've been really trying to figure out how that I can make my dolls sturdy and be able to do the body mods that I want to do, and finding out silly little tricks like this, like the carving of the divots to make it easier to sculpt on top. That it changes your whole process and it makes it a bit less frustrating. Because for someone who does so many body mods, I really don't like it. These are pieces of Toralized tail. And I'm using the same rerouting needle I used for rerouting with the knot method and a thick piece of twine, and I'm basically stringing the pieces of the legs together, like beads on a string. And I have the little pieces of Toralized tail just to stabilize them and to also make sure that the legs end up the same length. I cut them to the same length. Now I'm using aluminum foil and stuffing that into the leg to fill the cavity to make sure that the pieces of Toralized tail have somewhere to sit. And then once that I'm finished filling up the legs, I will use electrical tape to secure the pieces of twine to the little stabilizing piece of Toralized leg. And that will help keep it all aligned while we sculpt on top of it. And now, if you want further instructions on that, you can look at the video. It's a bit messy, but I think you should be able to make sense of it. I believe in you. And I'm going to talk a bit about the sculpting that I did, because I just realized that the clips that I put in are really quite short. But so basically I used Milliput, the silver gray color, which is quite close to white, and I mixed it with some red paint, which means that it was in its color quite close to Draculaura's original skin color. And I did that just in case any of the paint rubbed off, that it would be not as visible. And I also noticed on my Milliput that it gets a bit grainy and it gets this weird little texture, and it can be quite dry. And a way that I found to resolve that is to cut the edges off. The edges were a bit discolored or grainy. Oh, I'm securing the legs with glue. That can help. The edges were a bit grainy and discolored, and I found that cutting that off really helped. Here you can see the colored Milliput, and I'm just squishing that over the leg, and you can see how the edge is really discolored and the little extra pieces that I cut off. And I only used the center bits of the Milliput. And I'm just adding that on, trying to smooth out what I had, the little like tape thread base, and I'm also softening the transition from her hip to her leg. And now we're gonna do our last bit of body mod, which is really quite weird, but I wanted this axolotl girl to have nails, and I found it really hard to stick things to the little rubbery fingers. And so, in very typical fashion for me, I am going to try and sew some thread through the fingers to secure the nails onto. And this was a bit scary. And I also think that, like, for a first time trying it, I think it looks quite okay, but I want to see if I can get a bit more finesse with this method, because these nails, I would argue, look a little bit rough. But so I tied a knot into the end of the thread and then looped the thread through the finger and through that little knot, and then I'm securing it with glue. You can see I did it on every finger. She looks so goofy right now. But I'm also using the glue to kind of shape the thread into a long shape, and it's so silly. But what we're doing now is basically building a little flexible armature for the epoxy sculpt to squish onto, because at this point I had run out of Milliput. Yeah, I'm just putting glue onto the little goofy hairy fingers. And I know that Delightful put actual wire into the fingers, but sculpting onto thread is quite hard, but sculpting onto wire I find even more annoying. So I decided I would try it like this. I trimmed down the little pieces of thread as soon as they were secured with the glue, and I can tell you now that it actually worked quite well. The nails aren't coming off, they just are quite clunky, but I can live with that. I hope you can live with that. And as soon as the little thread armature on the fingers was trimmed up and secured, I went and mixed a tiny amount of Apoxie Sculpt and tried to cut that into even pieces. You can see how small these pieces are, and they still ended up way too large. And I found the best way to secure this to the fingers was to just kind of squish it around the tip of the finger and try and cover the thread. And I made sure my gloves were, I made sure I was wearing gloves in the first place, because Apoxie Sculpt is toxic, and then also made sure to squish it around the thread. And I kind of just left it mostly like that. You can see it really doesn't want to attach to the thread. I'm using a double-sized blob for the pointer, no, not the pointer, the middle and the ring finger, because they're connected together anyways. Though I do later go in to separate those two blobs of what we're gonna pretend look like nails. And they can actually move independently from one another. It really is quite weird. But then I finished both fingers, and you can see this is one that I haven't sanded down yet, and then there's one that I have sanded down, and the sanded down ones are still quite bulky, but it's such an improvement from the not sanded down ones. And I'm just going in with wet sandpaper and trying to squeeze it in between the fingers and sand it down. Again, trying to sand something squishy is really quite hard. But I just bent the sandpaper around it, tried to not put in too much pressure, and just kept going, persevered. And in the end, I think they're huge nails, but I don't think they look horrible. And for a first try, I'm happy enough with it. From the side, they look a bit worse, but let's pretend you don't see that. And then I already painted her face. Sorry, I didn't film it, guys. I painted her face, I painted her ears. This is with a mixture of red and violet and white. And then her body looks a bit rough. When you mix color with Milliput and sculpt with it, but then go in with water to smooth it down, it weirdly kind of leaches the color out of the Milliput. It looks quite weird. Anyways, I'm going in with wet sandpaper and just kind of sanding off all of the remnants of the color that leached out of the Milliput, and also smoothing down all the transitions. And usually I don't really like sanding, but for some reason sanding her down was really quite relaxing. I think it was because I worked just like one bit at a time, and I put really soft pressure behind the sandpaper and just was like, it will happen when it happens, and I'm not going to stress about it. So that was quite nice. Excuse how dry my hands look. I think it's mostly just the little particles that I'm sanding off that are getting stuck in every single groove on my skin. Yeah, oh my gosh. It feels like making a doll isn't that much work, and then I go back and edit the video and it's like, oh my gosh, I've been at this for like a month. A month of like intense work. But I really enjoy each step of the process. The thing I least enjoy, and here you get some background information, some behind the scenes info. I film and edit this all on an iPad, a little 2018 iPad Pro, and that is genuinely because I just don't have, I own like a little photo camera, and I own a computer that I lovingly refer to as Blue Bambooter that is barely more than a glorified typewriter. So this is all filmed and edited on one single iPad, and I often run into the problem of wanting to export my video and not having enough space, and then having to go in. And also, this is edited in Movie Maker. Like, I'm committed to this, guys. I'm really trying. But so that's my least favorite part. I'm doing editing on a device not meant for extensive video editing like this. I think her body came out quite nice. However, the transition from her ankles to her calves looks crazy. But we're gonna hide that in little socks anyways. So now we're going in with her outfit. This is my favorite Frankie, and I'm stealing their boots because I think they'll just... I wanted to make a little bit of a gothy girl, so I thought these boots would just be great. They're Shadow High Rex's boots. Now, this is a little bag that I don't remember how I got it, but we're going to be taking it apart, seam ripping the edges. If you watched my Cave Club girl, then this technique of obtaining fabric is familiar to you. And I find that they usually end up with a really nice amount of fabric for a doll dress, a doll shirt, just some piece of doll clothing. And I cut out these pieces. Again, I didn't really pattern, I just guessed, drew it out onto tracing paper and then doubled it and sewed it together. I sewed together the edges and then also, I don't know if it's top stitched, but I like stitched the seam allowance down into the back, and that's what that looks like from the front and the back. And then I'm going to sew over the top edge, and I'm also going to sew down the bottom edge and sew this little piece that used to be where the like thread gathered it, and so it kept this little like ruffliness in it, and I'm using that for a ruffle on the dress at the bottom because the dress was kind of short. And now I'm using this fabric medium. It's like an airbrush fabric medium, but it dries quite shiny and it's also kind of gluey. I'm using that to cover the whole dress to make it shinier, but also because the fake leather was flaking off and I needed something to kind of hold it together. The tights are from Core Refresh Draculaura, and I cut the toes off so that it would fit her. And now I mixed color in a little spray bottle and I'm spraying it onto this piece of fabric to kind of try and match it to the hair that she has on the sides of her head, the little purple bits, to try and get some more colors in there. And I'm mixing a little pink color and I'm doing some silly little tie-dye on this piece of fabric by just tying it off with little pieces of elastic. And I let that dry and then cut off the elastics. I was really struggling with that apparently, trying to cut the elastics but not the fabric. But then, this was my favorite part, you get to unravel it and that looks so fun! Yippee! I've never tie-dyed anything in my life before, so this was an exciting first, and I was happy that it worked so well. I just did it with acrylics. And then again, no patterning, just guessing and hoping for the best. And you can see that the fabric for the edges I did not change the color of, and now I'm just using a thread in a similar color as possible and kind of connecting the little lines that I drew. I wouldn't take this as a sewing tutorial because it is a bit of a mess, but I wanted to show at least how I did it. And I wanted to make an off-the-shoulder top, and I don't know how to do that, and I didn't look up a video. But how I did it is I kind of just worked in bits, sewing the... it works to work inside out, but here I had to turn it like right sides out again and fold over the top like seam, the top cuff. It's like a collar, but it goes around her shoulders. Just sewing that together, right sides together, so that I can flip it over and the wrong sides have all the seams and the wrong sides are in the inside. And I'm just doing all of this with a teeny tiny little back stitch, and I sewed the cuff to the sleeve, turned that inside out with the help of a pencil. You'll see the pencil in a second. My fingers are covered in paint. Don't you love that? I will do anything to do my arts, but I will not wash paint off my hands. This was probably the hardest part, sewing the inside of the sleeve to the collar, but I also wasn't sure whether if I sewed it together first it would still turn out right, like sew the sleeve to the collar not turned inside out and then try and sew the sleeve shut. That felt like it was going to be more difficult, So that's why I did it like this, just with a little back stitch sewing all around, and then making sure to secure the sleeve and the body together. And I decided I would make a little bodysuit to sit under the dress, just to cover her sleeves some, and also again to add some color to her color scheme. And now here I'm sewing the seams for the little crotch bit. It's the grossest way to say it. And now this is our little purse. It's not perfect, but I don't care. I'm using just a couple of rectangles and a square, and again the same matching thread. And this little piece, I'm first going in and hemming all the pieces that need to be hemmed. Most of the pieces will just have seams, so I'm not worried about that. But you can see I'm doing it just with a little back stitch, and I made 2 of these. I didn't rearrange the clips. I actually did make 2 because I'm like giving hints. The next doll that I'll be making that has Draculaura's head and Lagoona's body, they will be a set, her and the Axolotl girl. And I think I'm gonna keep it a little secret what kind of a theme this doll will have. But I've seen some dolls with a similar theme, but I don't remember if I've seen this specific theme on a doll before. And I know I haven't seen someone do the hair the way I'm planning to do it, so that I'm really excited for. I haven't been able to get started on her because the hair hasn't arrived. Been having some shopping problems. Shipping problems too, guys. Here I'm going in, the way that I did the straps is I just folded them into thirds and secured them with pins, and then just sewed another back stitch all the way up it. And for the pocket, I just folded over the little top edge to be able to hem it, and then I will show you in a bit. I pin it to the bag and fold over the edges so I can cleanly sew it down. And the reason I wanted to make these little bags was, one, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with the little tie-dyed fabric before that I finished dyeing it. And second, because I know that this is not a popular opinion, but I really, really like the accessories that G3 comes with. That's me pinning the pocket to the bag. I try and pin it as straight as I can. It always turns out crooked anyways. It's just, it adds character, let's say that. But I really like the characters that the G3 dolls come with, but I don't really like their backpacks. Like the rubbery, hard backpacks that often the accessories don't fit into the backpack anyways. So I've been making bags for my dolls here and there. I've been buying, for a while there were the Rainbow High like mystery boxes with the bags and the shoes in them. I have some of those and I just think it's so fun. So this is me making a little bag for my little fashionable little axolotl girl. I didn't make a bag for Una, for my little sheep girly, my first video, because I don't know, she has a vibe of just like going and walking into a field, no thoughts, no bag, no purse, no way to contact her. I feel like she's carefree like that, and don't we all wish we were carefree like that? But so that's why. Yeah, that's why I'm making the bags. I also have plans to, I'm just yapping now. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for joining me in this yap sesh. I've sewn the edges on the bag here, and I'm gonna now turn it inside out and attach the straps. I'm thinking of making a little doll bedroom set on one of my shelves. So keep an eye out for that. I have 3 plans for dolls to make. I want to make a collection video, and then I think maybe I will make the little doll bedroom so that I have a set to put them in, because right now I'm filming the final reveals just on the edge of my desk. And everyone else has such cute backgrounds, so I'll find a little way to make a cute background sometime soon. Keep your eye out. Very low budget here, guys, but we have passion, we care. Yeah. So we're attaching the strap to the bag. I've stopped tying knots in my thread, and I've just been sewing in little circles, just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I find that it secures things decently, and the knots aren't there. I was always so bothered by knots, and they're not there. So try that out if you haven't. I'm sure this is a common sewing technique, and it just took me this long to learn it because I'm stubborn and I like figuring things out at my own pace. But you can see, I've been trying to optimize my sewing process lately, and the way that I'm just like, before I'm even sewing the strap together, it's already halfway sewn to the bag, and then I don't ever need to cut my thread because I have a long enough piece of thread that I can follow it all the way around the sewing together of the strap back to the bag. A bit silly, but it works. And even though the bag is a bit messy and not the prettiest bag ever made, I think it's quite cute and I feel happy with it. So that's one strap attached, and there's the other strap and the other strap attached. Yay, we did it. And you'll see me put together her outfit in a little bit. But for now, hairstyle time. She looks a bit crazy, and you can see how many layers she has in her hair. And what we're starting with is separating the little bits above her ear. I wanted some of the purple to go up into her buns and some of the purple to go down into these little braids. I've seen, I think people with the jellyfish haircuts have a similar little vibe to their hair with all the little braids sticking out. I've also seen people with just longer strands in the front of their ears. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in The Hobbit the elves have little braids there. So all in all, a little ethereal, little cute moment. And I'm trying to make sure to pull it quite tight and pull it down so that the braids will sit flat. And then I braided my way down and I secured it with a piece of thread. And how you secure it with a piece of thread is you just sew through it and around it and through it and around it over and over and over until until you feel confident it will stay together. That's my technique. And then I'm tying off half the hair to work on one half of the head at a time. And I'm using, again, my rerouting needle. These things are great tools to separate the top half, like the top front half of the hair. I make quite a diagonal parting, and I'm tying that off with a hair tie first so that I can make the bun in piece. But then once I actually do make the bun, which I make through twisting it together, I do that I secure that bun with thread. I'm sorry guys, I skipped ahead. I did a French braid. Yeah, that's a French braid, I'm quite sure. No, that's a Dutch braid. Cool. And secured it at the end, and you can see because she has these layers, there's quite a few bits sticking out. I will trim those off later, but first I'm going to cover the hair in a gel mixture. I find that really helps keep it together. And yeah, I did both sides. Oh, I forgot to notice. Yeah, now I'm just trimming off the little extra bits. You can see the hair has a bit of a stiffness to it at this point. That's because I did put the gel on just to make sure that the braid wouldn't deteriorate, fall apart. And you can see little gray spots on her, and I'm sanding those down. That's Apoxie Sculpt. I was out of Milliput at this point, but there were some uneven bits left over even after sanding that I went and filled up with some Milliput. And I think I actually gave up on the ankles. Sorry guys. I didn't smooth those out any further except for the little bits that you see. I find it really hard to change the shape of legs, to lengthen the legs, but then also make the legs look nice without making them just incredibly bulky. So stay tuned to see if I learn some more tricks in the future. For now, maybe I will just stick to making dolls shorter. I find making dolls shorter is a lot easier than making them taller. Yeah, I always wet sand my epoxy because I don't really have an easy way to trap dust, and it's cold outside, so unless I have to go outside like with my Dremel where it will just shoot the dust everywhere, I will sand inside, but wet sand, and be careful to not get too much dust anywhere. Now we're going in with white paint, red paint. That's acrylic medium, and I will add violet paint. Yeah, there we go, adding violet paint. And I put a little brush on her thigh to see whether the color matches, and right now the color matches really well, but as it dries it darkens a little bit, which is just a betrayal all around. Here you can see it's darkened. So I mixed more white with it, and now it looks like a bad match because it's way too light, but we trust the process. It will end up matching. And I'm just going in and painting over all the mods, making sure to give her face a little extra layer. Don't worry guys, you didn't miss out on anything. And just making sure that it all matches evenly. The reason I went in, and like I could have just painted oh actually I'm going in with the same wood glue mixture that I used for Nicol Bolas to try and seal her, to see how that goes, because I was quite happy with how it went for him. However, I don't think it's ideal for sealing on the face. I'm having a lot of trouble sealing the face lately. And what I was going to say, the reason I didn't go in to this project just using a full-on Lagoona is because I hate when the paint rubs off the joints. And so I thought I'd be ahead of that by using a doll that had the right color on the joints already, and I find repainting the head a bit less of a hassle, and I like having the opportunity to like pick my face sculpt to match my characters well enough. However, I really haven't figured out the trick to making things last through boil washing. Also, I'm repainting the ears here with just mostly red and white, a mix of red and white. And then I'm going in with a bit of a lighter pink to accentuate the little ridges. The reason I'm having such trouble making things last through boil washes is because I kind of refuse to use MSC. I don't have a place to spray it, and it also gets too cold here to spray it like 3 months in the year. So I'm just gonna struggle for the sake of knowledge, and once I figure it out, I'll be able to share it with you guys. But yeah, spoiler warning, the varnish that I'm brushing on here does not last. Or actually, in the end, it turned out okay. It just, we had a little scary moment. But either way, I'm going in, sealing her little face, and then it's time to dress her. So we have the little bodysuit sewn together at the crotch. We're gonna turn it inside out, and I didn't add any Velcro because I didn't want to. And it only just barely fit over her hips, but that's okay with me. We make it work. And because the neckline is so wide, it's able to fit right over her chest and her shoulders. And then we're going in with the tights. I think I already said these are from Core Refresh Draculaura, and just pulling those all the way up, and they hide some of the unevenness of the legs. Then her dress, I forgot to show you, but I added Velcro to the back of that, and you can kind of see the texture that it has, but I kind of don't mind it. It's like funky and a little cool and weird, so I like that. And then I make sure to pull that as tight as I can because she is wearing a lot of layers, tucking the little sweater bodysuit in, like trying to adjust that. I made little socks. These are literally just tubes sewn together, and it gets a bit in trouble with the tights, but it's fine, and it's just cute to me. And then we're adding on the shoes. Aren't these shoes so cool? They're like way too big, but I saw someone on Instagram use them on their Frankie, and I was like, oh, I want that. And then while I was traveling, I found a really cheap Shadow High Rex, so I was like, I'm getting him. And his outfit pieces are so good. So here we are, and the last thing we have to do is paint her face and paint her nails. The paint colors I'm using are Pure Red, Rose Violet, Titanium White, and Ultramarine Blue, I think. We will double check because I show them all to you. And I use Holbein acrylic gouache. I bought these specifically for doll repainting because a lot of people use Ultramarine Deep is the color. A lot of people use gouache for their doll repaints, and I can't use gouache, and of course Liquitex matte medium, matte acrylic medium. Oh, and black. I couldn't read that. Girl, I think it's lamp black. Yeah. Oh, I painted these little examples and had people vote on my Instagram. You can always find my Instagram in my bio, and yeah, if I ever get into a conundrum about how to design a doll, I will post it on there. So a lot of people use gouache for their face paints because it doesn't dry too quick, and acrylic gouache does dry quite quick, but I thought it would be like a good in-between between actual acrylic and using gouache, which obviously I couldn't use gouache, it would just wash right off. And I'm quite happy using them. I think their texture turns out quite nice, the way that they turn matte, and I like the color range they have, and I haven't had any problems with them not staying on, and they also don't stain too bad, though some colors do stain. So down in the corner you can see the little face that we're trying to base this off of. That one got the most votes. However, I'm going to, like, first of all, not be able to perfectly replicate it, but I'm also going to try and darken it a little bit to match with her outfit. And what I also like about acrylic gouache is that if you're quick enough, you can wipe it off with water the same way you can with normal gouache and watercolor pencils and such. And I'm just trying to go in to find the right placement for the little dot eyebrows, and then painting them in with quite a dark pink, quite a saturated dark pink, and then I'm trying to kind of find a roadmap for where the eyes go. I'm using the face mold as a guide, but not necessarily as a template, and I'm just trying to symmetrically paint this in. Also, guys, can I talk about, I feel like this overhead footage is really good. I feel like I'm slowly but surely figuring out how I like to film and what looks good, and it is hard to film on an iPad, I'm not gonna lie, but this footage I think looks really nice. I feel really accomplished. I'm going in with the softer pink to try, and the little dot eyebrows in the picture have this little border around them, and I don't know how to do that in real life as easily, but I think these came out quite cute. And now I'm going in with a purple. This is the shading in the eye. I don't always add shading on my eyeballs, but I thought this time it would be necessary, and I lightened it, and then I'm going in with quite a translucent little lilac to try and slowly shift the color towards where I want it to be. And at this point we've skipped a couple bits. I've added some darkness below the eyes, and I'm adding a little layer of a lighter lilac to try and add a bit of a gradient from the dark lilac to the white of the eye. Next, I'm going in with another little kind of dark purple and trying to find the shape for her eyeliner. What's funny is that both her and Una have no top eyelashes, just eyeliner. So I will try and add some eyelashes to my next doll, just for variety's sake. Also, how funny is it to use your thumbnail as a little palette? I think it looks really cute, and it works quite well. Like, the paint will dry on your thumb really fast, but it helps to kind of get the excess paint off of your nail. Oh, you can see how meticulous I'm being, just making sure to really get that line nice and straight. We're adding a little light patch to the bottom of her iris. Painting face-ups is so fun and satisfying and such a wonderful way to experiment. And for some reason it's more satisfying than just drawing a face. I don't know why that is, but I wish I could do this more often, but I've gotten good enough at my face-ups that I really like doing it. And as I mentioned, my eyes go really cross-eyed while doing it, so like I shouldn't do it too often. I'm going in and painting her lips. This is the biggest difference I made from the little reference picture. In the reference picture she has really light lips, like light soft pink lips. I I think so, at least. I'm pretty sure. We can't see it right now. But I wanted her to have black lips. Mostly also so that I could put the little black lip gloss that comes with Core Refresh Draculaura. I did not pronounce that correctly. Core Refresh Draculaura, that I could put that in the little front pocket of her little purse. So that's part of my motivation. I'm so sorry if you can hear children screaming outside. I swear they're fine. They're just playing. It's Sunday. Everyone's out of school. They're just playing around. And here's the best part, adding little dots. I usually do this with undiluted white paint. Whenever I'm painting a face, I try to go in with quite diluted paint, whether with water or with medium. But for the eye dots, I go in with really, really concentrated paint, just to make sure that they're opaque and as bright as they can be. I think her face turned out so cute. For her eyelids, I think I went in with a slightly darker pink. I went in with the dark pink to kind of define the crease, and then I made a bit more space for the crease with a lighter pink. And that added some depth, and I thought that would look cute. And now I'm going in with a really, really careful hand to add her bottom lashes. And so I'm adding one in the outer corner first, and then tracing the bottom of her eyelid. And it's like I hold my breath painting this, and I'm watching it and trying to do my voiceover. I want to hold my breath again. How I try and get my bottom eyelashes even, or any eyelashes, is I work from the outside in and just keep splitting it in half and then again in half, to try and get the placement right. And then this isn't perfect, and some of them are a bit big, but I go in. Isn't she so cute? I go in with a color that I try and match to the skin tone as well as I can, to kind of clean up the lines. Oh, we're going to the top eyelid. I don't know exactly what I'm doing here. Let's try and figure out my thought process. I think what's actually happening is I'm trying to even out the two eye shapes, because they're slightly different shapes, which you probably won't be able to see, but because I had been staring at it for about an hour and a half at this point, I could see it. Maybe I was imagining it, but I'm trying to kind of even out the shape. What's a bit sad is that when I go to boil wash the bangs down, her face up smears a bit, so I have to go fix it. But for now, I'm happy with this, and I'm going in with this like wood glue water mixture that I used for Nico Bolas as well to seal it. And I don't know if I remember correctly, but I think this might have smeared some of it too. Yeah, you can see the line on one of her eyes. It like kind of picks up the paint. I don't know what's happening, but it's okay. We'll survive. I can fix this. Anyways, while that we're watching me frantically try and fix this, you can see I added these little white lines on the top of her eyelids, which I think looks quite cute. And then we get her little purse, and I'm adding, this is Venus's bottle that came with Spectra, the little ghost pepper hot sauce. This is again Core Refresh Draculaura's sunscreen, and then the little black lip gloss in the front pocket. How cute. Oh, I love it. And she gets to have a little purse. And then we're going in and glossing her mouth. Doesn't that look great? Doesn't that look amazing? I love this so much. I never wear black lipstick, but it just can look so cool. And I'm also going in and glossing her eyes, which really makes all the colors seem more vivid and bright. And I'm actually using the fabric medium that I used to secure her dress for this as well. It's because that's just what I have, and it's glossy, and it will run out soon, and then I'll buy an actual gloss. But I'm really about learning to work with what you have. And I think she turned out so cute. But we have another little bit to go. Oh, I lost her nails as well. I think the nails look quite nice. For first try, that's quite great. Like, don't look at them from the side, they're too thick, but I think they turned out quite nicely. And they will not pop off. They will not detach. And here we go, here's the disaster. Do you see how textured her face is? And like the varnish turned this weird color, and I was panicking at this point. And I thought maybe if I could cut off some of the hair, it will save it. I should have just put it away and came back in the morning, because guess what? It all dried fine. But I can't do that. So I tried to cut her bangs. Here was the trouble. I didn't want the face to stay wet and for that to ruin the face up, but I couldn't put the bangs back out of the way because they needed to be boil washed down. That was the big trouble. And yeah, and this won't happen with the next doll because the next doll will not have bangs. Me and doll bangs have a bit of beef, but do you see how the hair is sticking into the paint? This was really like, I was really upset. And you can see how like the texture kind of changes when I rub on it. It was stressing me out, guys. But I fixed it. I repainted her face just a little bit, which is how you can see. You can see that her eyeliner is a bit darker, but her bangs are cute. I'm gonna cut her bangs so short. And I think it's really cute that her bangs are so short, but it's also slightly scary. I was planning to cut them a bit longer than I wanted them to be, but I think this length is already really quite short for bangs, and I could have left it at this. But her face dried just fine. I left her overnight and she turned out perfectly alright, luckily. But I'm just going in with sharp scissors, trimming up the hair, and I'm going in and softening it quite a bit. I thought that would be cuter than harsh straight bangs. This ended up shortening the bangs a lot more. As someone who's cut her own bangs, I can say from experience that this will just happen. You're trying to trim your bangs just a little bit and suddenly they're like 4 centimeters shorter than you meant them to be. But I think she's alternative enough that it looks kind of cool and funky and not out of place. And I'm cutting off all the extra little strands that I had missed the last time that I went in. And the last little bit that I go in and do is I also cut the tips of her braids to be straight, which I think looks quite cute. Oh, and I added the little charm from Core Refresh Lagoona that I think looks really cute. And here we go, trimming off her little braids, trying to get them even. I think that looks cute. And you can see there's just a lot of length on the back of her braids that didn't feel necessary. So I cut them off to try and match. I think that looks funky. And then for a last little accessory, I decided I would go in and make her a belt. So I took 6 long pieces of thread folded in like, I think in the end each little strand that I'm working with here is about maybe 8. I think it might be 8 pieces of thread. So 4 pieces of thread doubled over, tied onto the little binder clip. The binder clip is attached to one of the doors on the Sculpting Secrets lockers, and I'm just doing a 6-strand braid. 3 of the strands are a bright vivid pink and 3 of the strands are quite a warm toned purple. And this was really tricky, but eventually I got the hang of it, and I will show you what she looks like in the final reveal. I'm excited! Yay! For a final reveal, I thought it would be cute to show her next to my Draculaura and Lagoona. And I think it's really cool to see how different the 3 of them look. I don't think they look alike. Let me straighten her out, just so you can see that she's quite a bit taller than both of them. My Draculaura is wearing really tall heels, which is why she's not that much shorter than the other two. I added the pets that came with the dolls that served as her base because I thought it would be cute to kind of frame all of this, but now that makes me think I should have made her a pet. I have already decided on her name. I think her name is Lottie. AXOLOTL, Lottie. I think Lottie is a really cute name, but I also think there's a nice amount of contrast between how edgy she looks and how cute Lottie is as a name. Thanks for watching. Thanks for spending time with me. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more of me. Thanks for spending like an hour with me. I hope you enjoyed my rambles, and I'll see you next time for my collection video. I will try and get that out by the end of the year. Thanks for watching. Bye!